Without wasting your time, here are 6 most disturbing hiking encounters caught on camera. It all started like any other adventure for Ciaz. A group of friends, 4 in total, heading out to explore an abandoned campsite deep in the heart of a sprawling forest. For these thrill seekers, urbexing, urban exploration, was a regular hobby, a way to feed their curiosity about forgotten places and hidden history. But what they didn't know was that this time, the adventure would spiral out of control into a real-life horror show. Now picture this, a remote, desolate camping site abandoned for years. The perfect backdrop for a peaceful getaway, or in this case, the perfect stage for something far more sinister. As the group ventures deeper into the forest, the light from their flashlights barely pierces through the suffocating darkness. Everything feels just a little bit off, but being seasoned explorers, they shrug it off. After all, what could go wrong? That's when they notice it. A sign. It reads, "Private property. Beware of the dog." But this is where it gets weird. There's no dog, just a deafening silence. What else could be lurking in this forest? Have you ever felt like you were being watched? That prickly sensation on the back of your neck as though someone, or something, is following your every move. Imagine feeling that in the middle of nowhere, with no escape in sight. That's when things took a horrifying turn. As the group pushed forward, they spotted what appeared to be a makeshift camp, a few scattered belongings, the remnants of an old fire pit. It was clear that someone had been here, but there were no signs of life. Not yet. Suddenly a scream pierced through the silence.
What the f***?
It wasn't an ordinary scream. It was blood-curdling, almost animalistic, like someone, or something, was in immense pain or rage. Frozen in place, the group scanned the darkness, hearts pounding, adrenaline surging. "Did you hear that?" one of them whispered. What could make a sound like that? And then, in the faint glow of their flashlights, they saw her. A woman, pale, ghostly, with matted hair and a crazed look in her eyes, staring right back at them. But here's the kicker. She wasn't just standing there. She was holding an axe.
Hello? 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 What the f***? What the f***? Hey!
What would you do in that moment? Well, they didn't have time to decide, because that woman, this deranged figure from the woods, began running towards them, screaming threats, screaming about death. They barely had time to react. The forest that once felt like an adventure suddenly became a trap. Trees blurred past as they ran for their lives, the woman's screams echoing through the trees, her footsteps pounding after them. The light from her flashlight flickered, getting closer. Too close. One of them fell. Hard. Rolling through the dirt, desperately clutching their camera. But the woman, she was still coming. Closer and closer. The group scattered, each running in different directions, hoping to lose her in the thick underbrush. But the forest was a maze. The branches clawed at their skin as they sprinted, barely able to see where they were going. Suddenly, the vlogger found himself alone, hidden behind a tree, trying to steady his breath, trying to stay silent. But the worst part? He could still hear her. The woman's footsteps crunching on leaves, getting closer and closer. She was looking for him. He clutched his camera, trying to remain completely still. But the fear was overwhelming. 20 agonizing minutes passed. The woman's threats still echoed in his mind. Then he heard the sirens. The police had arrived, their flashing lights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. But here's where things get even more disturbing. Even after the woman was found, she didn't resist. She simply sat on the ground, staring at the vlogger, smiling. A smile so cold, so twisted, it was burned into his mind. It was the kind of smile that says, "I'm not done with you yet." The police let her go. Yes, you heard that right. Despite everything, they simply released her back into the forest. And here's the part that haunts him to this day. As she walked away, she turned back one last time, locking eyes with him, that same smile stretched across her face. Since that night, the vlogger hasn't been the same. The memory of that woman, the sound of her screams, and that chilling smile continue to haunt him. He even questioned if he'd ever go back to exploring abandoned places again. Now, every time he steps into the woods, he can't shake the feeling that she's still out there, waiting. This video comes from the YouTuber who is known as Welcome to the Woods UK. The video begins with the creator welcoming viewers back into the ominous woods. There's an eerie stillness in the air, as though the forest itself is waiting for something to happen. After a recent storm, the creator returns to the woods to inspect the damage, particularly concerned about the cameras they've set up to monitor the area. The storm has felled several trees, and an uneasy feeling hangs in the air. The creator has frequented this woodland recently, camping alone and monitoring for strange occurrences. However, up until this point, nothing of note had been captured. No eerie happenings, no encounters with mysterious creatures. But today feels different. Something catches his eye. Massive footprints in the dirt, too large to be from any normal boot. His voice trembles as he narrates, pointing out the size and depth of the print. Could it be from a man? A giant? Or perhaps something even more unsettling? He crouches down to inspect it further, comparing it to his own boot, which is dwarfed by the size of the imprint. It's not just the size of the footprint that's unnerving, but the way it seems to have appeared out of nowhere. The forest floor should have been wiped clean by the storm, yet these prints remain, as though someone or something has been roaming here unseen. The creator's voice betrays his anxiety as he starts to piece together the strange clues. Who could be leaving these prints in such a remote area? Driven by a growing sense of dread, the creator decides to retrieve a live camera he previously set up elsewhere in the woods. His goal? To mount it in this mysterious spot, hoping to catch the source of these unnerving footprints on film. As he moves through the woods, his tension is palpable. He's alone, miles from civilization, with nothing but his wits and a camera to protect him from whatever might be lurking. He quickly straps the camera to a tree, allowing it a 360-degree view of the area. The live feed will send alerts straight to his phone, even in the dead of night, providing real-time footage of any movements. This will allow him to monitor the woods from the relative safety of his own home. As the camera is set, the creator's nerves begin to fray. His voice trembles as he admits he feels jittery, an unexplained anxiety that has crept up on him ever since finding those footprints. He's no stranger to these woods, having camped here many times before, but today feels different. Something is off. Is it all in his head, a natural reaction to being alone in the vast wilderness? Or is there truly something more sinister waiting just beyond the trees? His sense of dread deepens as he begins to feel that familiar tingling on the back of his neck, the kind you get when you're sure someone or something is standing right behind you. Just when he thinks he's getting a grip on his fear, the discovery of yet another giant footprint sends a chill down his spine. This print, like the one before, is abnormally large and fresh despite the storm and bad weather. It's clear that whatever left these tracks has been walking these woods recently, perhaps even while he's been here. His nerves continue to unravel, and he decides that it's best to leave for now. Whatever is out there is making its presence known, and it's clear that staying any longer would only tempt fate. A few nights later, while monitoring his live camera footage from the safety of his home, the camera picks up something unusual.
Early Thursday morning at 4:12 a.m, this figure comes into view. Almost looks like it's trying to pull something down from a branch above, acting in a peculiar manner. Then the camera takes a further 2 still shots of it moving further off to the left-hand side of the woodland.
A figure. It moves strangely as if it's pulling at something in the trees. The time is 4:12 a.m., the dead of night. The figure's motions are erratic, almost too fluid to be human, yet too solid to be a ghost. Could this be the creature that left the footprints? Or is it something even more terrifying? The camera snaps a series of still shots, capturing the figure as it moves through the woods, heading deeper into the darkness. Each shot leaves more questions than answers. Why is it out there at such an ungodly hour? What does it want? The creator is left with a chilling realization. The mystery of the woods is far from solved, and the deeper he digs, the darker and more unsettling the truth seems to become. Could it be that some secrets of the woods are meant to remain hidden forever? What started as a simple night hike for the team of the YouTube channel, Lost Places and Legends, quickly turned into something else, something unexplainable. The video opens with two individuals making their way through dense, shadowy woods. The air is thick with tension, and the only sounds are the crunch of leaves beneath their boots and the occasional distant rustling. They're armed with flashlights, cameras, and a feeling they can't shake. One whispers to the other, "What is that?" Suddenly, a faint blue light flickers in the distance, barely visible through the trees. "You see it, right?" the other one asks, scanning the forest with wide eyes. What could it be? A ghostly orb? A creature? Before venturing into these woods, the hikers knew the stories. Local legends tell of haunted spirits wandering this area, ghostly apparitions, mysterious orbs, and strange lights that appear without warning. People claim that this part of the forest has seen things that cannot be explained. But is it all just myth? In the pitch-black darkness, it's easy to feel your heart race, your mind play tricks. The hikers continue, whispering about the eerie silence of the night. The tension builds as the forest swallows them deeper. One of them suddenly stops, staring into the thick trees ahead. Their cameras catch movement, a quick flash of light moving through the trees. This isn't the reflection of their flashlights, but something else, something blue.
Just hovering right there. Here, I'm gonna cut my light out.
Cut your headlamp out. That's better.
I can see it.
They stand frozen for a moment, gripping their flashlights tightly, unsure of what comes next. Moving cautiously forward, there's always the chance we're not alone, one says. Deep down, they both know that this isn't just an ordinary night. The woods are alive with something that doesn't belong. After what feels like hours, they stumble upon an unsettling discovery, an old, forgotten cemetery hidden deep within the woods. Who would bury people all the way out here? One asks, breaking the silence. Rows of gravestones stretch out before them, overgrown by time. Most of the graves are old, dating back to the 1800s, some with weathered names barely readable. But something is strange. There are fresh flowers on some of the graves. Who's been here recently? They start snapping pictures, hoping to catch something, anything, on camera. As they explore the graveyard, the air suddenly fills with an eerie scream.
What was that?
It sounded like that scream again. It sounded like it come from that way, though. Behind it here.
What was that? One of them exclaims, frantically scanning the surrounding trees with his flashlight. The scream echoes again, this time closer, sending a wave of fear through them both. Without a word, they silently agree to press on, but the tension is unbearable. Moving swiftly through the woods. As they make their way back to the truck, the tension grows thicker. They're almost running now, their flashlights bouncing wildly with each hurried step. Whatever they think was watching them earlier, it's still out there. The darkness seems to close in around them, and the strange blue light appears once more, just on the edge of their vision. But they don't stop to investigate. They don't dare. Whatever it is, they don't want to find out. By the time they reach the truck, they're out of breath and covered in sweat. The bugs that swarmed them earlier seem like the least of their worries now. As they slam the truck doors shut and peel out of the woods, they exchange a look of silent relief. But even as they drive away, they can't shake the feeling that something strange, was watching them the whole time. Camping with Josh is a YouTube channel that features Josh, a passionate camper who takes us around on his trips through his videos. In his one of the most popular videos, which was posted on the 27th of September 2024, things take an eerie turn. Josh, a seasoned solo camper, sets off into the woods after a long day at work. It's misty, the air is thick with moisture, and the woods are soaked from days of rain. As he enters the dense forest, the atmosphere is both serene and unsettling. He's not new to this. He's camped in these woods before, finding solace in the stillness and isolation. But tonight, little does he know, this will be a night he won't forget. As he treads deeper into the forest, the mist curling around the trees, he comes across something strange, an unexpected sight that immediately unsettles him. Draped over a tree stump is a bed sheet, shaped eerily like a ghost. He jokes about it, trying to lighten the mood, but the unease lingers. He considers camping nearby, but quickly rethinks it. The sight of that ghostly figure puts ideas in his head, ideas he can't shake. He decides to press on, moving deeper into the woods. The rain picks up and the forest grows darker, wetter, and more isolated. This is the kind of environment he thrives in, normally. But tonight, things are different. He finds a new spot to set up his tarp, somewhere sheltered from the rain, and begins preparing his camp for the night. Yet, despite his best efforts to focus on building a fire and settling in, he can't shake the feeling that something is off. As he works, splitting damp wood and gathering supplies, something strange happens. The forest grows too quiet. The birds, which had been chirping moments before, fall silent. It's the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. He's been in the woods enough times to know that this kind of silence usually means one thing: there's something out there. And then, it happens. He hears it.
I'm finding it really difficult. Do you know what I mean? You heard that.
Heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through the underbrush. At first he tries to rationalize it. Maybe it's just a deer or a dog walker passing through the forest. But deep down, he knows better. The steps are too heavy, too calculated. They're not the random, erratic movements of an animal. As he continues to build his fire, he can feel eyes on him. He scans the woods but sees nothing. The air is thick with tension, and the sense of being watched becomes overwhelming. He tries to distract himself, focusing on the fire, on the food he's preparing. But the footsteps continue, sometimes close, sometimes distant, as if whatever is out there is circling him, waiting. Suddenly, in a flash of instinct, he decides he can't stay. It's all too much. His gut is screaming at him to leave. He doesn't even fully understand why, but the feeling is undeniable. He quickly packs up his camp, leaving behind the tarp and some gear, planning to return in the morning. But tonight, he's not staying. As he moves quickly through the mist, the rain picks up and every gust of wind feels like it's pushing him out of the forest. And then a bark.
And cook some food. My missus made a nice there's a dog behind me. Maybe it was a dog this whole time. That's a pig. Right.
Somewhere in the distance, a dog begins barking, echoing through the trees. Is it just a dog walker? Or is there something more sinister happening? As he nears the edge of the forest, the feeling of dread begins to ease. The barking fades, the footsteps seem to stop, and the mist feels less oppressive. But that nagging question lingers. What was out there? This video comes from Thomas's YouTube channel, which specializes in outdoor adventures and solo camping trips. Thomas, who often embarks on solo camping trips, brings viewers into the heart of the wilderness, offering practical camping tips. In this video, he takes us along for a solo camp in an overgrown forest. A forest that, as you'll soon find out, is far from welcoming. The story begins on what seems like any other day. Thomas is exhausted after a heavy workout, but he's determined to set out for a wild solo camping trip. He's running late, racing against the sun as it dips below the horizon. The clock is ticking. He has 20 minutes to drive and another 20 to walk to his chosen spot. It seems like the perfect setting for a peaceful night in nature. But little does he know, the forest has something entirely different planned. Upon arriving, things quickly start to go wrong. The path is overgrown with nettles and thorns, leaving his legs scratched and stinging. He remarks on how quiet it is, noticing that despite the dense foliage, the woods seem oddly devoid of life. No birds, no insects, just silence. He tries to brush it off as he pushes through the overgrowth, but the feeling that something is off only grows stronger. As he ventures deeper into the forest, the atmosphere begins to change. The path becomes increasingly difficult to follow, and the woods feel unnatural. He describes a strange sense of spiritual trespass, as if he's entered a place where he isn't welcome. He tries to ignore the feeling, setting up camp and getting ready to cook some food, but the unease is persistent. His dog, Airy, starts acting strangely, tail dropped, eyes fixated on something unseen in the distance. This isn't normal behavior for the dog, and it sends a chill down Thomas's spine. What is Airy seeing that he can't? Suddenly, the woods fall completely silent. The birds that had been singing earlier are now gone. There's an oppressive stillness, and Thomas begins to question his decision to stay. Ari's strange behavior is making him uneasy, and the overwhelming sense that they're not alone starts to take hold. In a hushed tone, he confesses that something feels wrong, very wrong. At this point, he's conflicted. Part of him wants to push through, to stay the night as planned, but the other part, the instinctual part, screams at him to leave. It's not just nerves, it's a gut feeling. Something doesn't want him there. He tries to calm himself by cooking dinner and setting up camp, but everything feels off. Throughout this eerie sequence, Airy remains tense, constantly looking toward the same spot in the woods. The dog, who is normally calm, now appears distressed, tail down, alert, and refusing to settle. Thomas knows that dogs are often more sensitive to the supernatural, and with Airy's strange behavior, he begins to feel like staying in the woods might not be the best idea after all. With every passing minute, the forest feels more hostile. The silence is deafening, and his instincts tell him to leave. He hesitates, thinking about how this is supposed to be a peaceful night in nature, but deep down he knows something's not right. He decides to pack up, cutting his camping trip short. As they walk back toward the car, the oppressive feeling begins to lift. Airy seems to relax, the air feels lighter, and the world returns to its natural state. Just as they're about to leave, something happens that seals the deal.
Bad vibes, man. Bad vibes. I don't feel the slightest bit of regret. I feel that I've made the right choice. You won't have heard that because I've got my mic on me. Can you hear that? Switch my mic off.
The camera captures a strange sound coming from the forest, the kind of sound that raises the hair on the back of your neck. It's not a human sound, and it's not any animal he's familiar with. The birds, which had been silent, suddenly burst into frantic cawing, as if something has disturbed them. Whatever it was, it's enough to convince him that he made the right choice to leave. With one final glance at the darkened forest, He turns and leaves, grateful that he trusted his instincts. This last footage of this video comes from a channel called Dee's Dark Adventures, a channel where camping trips, wilderness explorations, and paranormal encounters often collide. She is known for venturing into remote areas and documenting her experiences. In this particular video, something in the forest isn't quite right. She is out in a familiar forest, sitting near a structure she's found before. She's relaxed, taking in the quiet evening. As she listens to the surrounding woods, she hears faint sounds. A movement here, a strange noise there, but nothing conclusive. As the sun begins to set, she starts to notice the subtle shift in the atmosphere. She hears footsteps, quiet but deliberate. The woods, once serene, seem to close in around her. She wonders aloud if she's overreacting, but the feeling that something is watching her grows stronger. She's sensing something. Something is wrong. Determined to shake off the feeling, she decides to explore further. Walking deeper into the woods, she comes across strange signs. A pile of cracked nutshells, perfectly placed in an area without any nut trees nearby. She remarks that while it could have been animals, the placement seems deliberate, almost staged. As she moves on, she hears more movement in the distance. The woman tries to calm herself, but the unsettling feeling only grows. Could it be an animal? Or something more unnatural? Suddenly, the noises intensify. Dee hears a knocking sound, like wood hitting wood, echoing through the trees. It's followed by a low rustling nearby. She attempts to knock back, hoping to get a response. Nothing at first, just silence. But then, something moves in the distance.
Who's up there? Who? Okay. Mister. Who's up there? Who?
A shadow shifts between the trees, and for a moment, she's sure she's seen something. Was it a trick of the light, or was something moving through the forest? The tension in the video rises as Dee decides to investigate further. The forest, now dimly lit by the fading sunlight, seems darker than it should be. She glances back at the camera, her voice quieter now, almost as if she's afraid of what she might stir up. At this point, she begins to question whether she should stay. The sounds are growing louder, more insistent. She's used to hearing the regular noises of nature, wind, birds, small animals, but these sounds don't belong. Dee hears something being thrown, perhaps rocks or branches, but she can't see what's causing it. Then, she notices movement out of the corner of her eye.
You might treat you like a potato chip. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa, look. What's that? No fucking way. Dude. What? Huh? Look at him go. Sorry, I'm trying to hold still. Look at him go. Sorry, I'm trying to hold still.
Something black, something large. But as soon as she looks directly at it, it's gone. Her heart races. The feeling of being watched is now undeniable. She's torn between curiosity and fear. Part of her wants to stay, to see what's out there, but every instinct is screaming at her to leave. She's faced strange things in these woods before, but it's different this time. It feels dangerous. She decides it's time to leave. She's not waiting around to find out what's lurking in the darkness anymore. It's time to go. And with that, it's time for me to go too. I'm out.